of the RecPoker Podcast. This is our weekly chats edition, but we also have a weekly forums edition that's all about strategy. I'm Jim Reid, your host for both. I go by Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on socials. And I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern live on YouTube, where you can join us for free and win a prize just for showing up. Now, I am super excited. We are going to be talking to the one and only Daniel Negreanu in just a moment. First, I'm proud to share that we're brought to you by Running Aces. They're the official sponsor of the RecPoker Podcast. Most of what we do is free, so we're a largely volunteer-based organization, and we really depend on support from our sponsors and from our premium members who take part in our training materials and study opportunities for only $22 a month. And you can always get your first month of RecPoker Premium for $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. And as you know, we love supporting local food banks around here. So if you make a donation of any amount to your own local food bank, send us the receipt. We'll happily send you your first month of RecPoker Premium for free, just as a way of saying thanks for helping out a fellow human. Now, speaking of fellow humans, you get used to my voice because they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm only one man. It takes a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call our leadership panel the Wrecking Crew. Of course we do, because we're all dorks. And if you want to learn more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or just listen up because you're going to meet a few of them on the show tonight. We got a packed house. It's not just me. It's Rob Washam, John Somsky, Joe Coolis, Kim Kilroy, our invisible producer, Rob Gardner, and we've got a special guest, premium member, Christina Sukram, who we'll be talking to in just a moment. And speaking of fantastic people, I got a hell of an Easter egg in my basket this weekend. Mrs. Bluffsterini called me downstairs because she was watching Love is Blind on Netflix and said, "Hey, Jim, do you recognize this guy up on the altar?" It was Steve Fredland. Longtime RecPoker fans will know Steve, the founder of RecPoker, has always had several irons in the fire. And one of them, he's a pastor, he's a religious guy, he's a motivational speaker. And he found himself on the set of Love is Blind performing the ceremony. Rob Washam, you got a heads up about this too, I think.
Yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, my wife and I have been watching Love is Blind from the beginning of the season. And we were waiting especially for Friday because that's when the weddings were going to happen. I don't know if you know how the weddings work, but they have a wedding ceremony. And then at that time, they decide if they really want to stay together or not. So they really, they've gone through the whole engagement process and go to the wedding and whatnot. So I get the email from Steve Fredland Friday morning. And I tell my wife, I said, "Wow, Steve Fredland is going to be doing one of the weddings today." And of course, what he didn't realize is he put a picture of him officiating the wedding, and the picture made it very evident that the people in the wedding said yes.
Oh, so he spoiled it.
It was a spoiler. I knew it all day, and I couldn't say a word to my wife. So as we're watching it that night, I'm going, I have to be really quiet here because I can't let her know that I know what's going to happen.
Luckily, you've been working on your poker face, so she had no idea. Is that right?
No, she had no idea.
And, Rob, one of the great things, Rob's been really leaning into the administrative work here at RecPoker behind the scenes. He's a big part of what we do. He does all that boring stuff that nobody else wants to do. What a guy. And one of the things he was working on this week is putting our ROI competition winners together. We're going to be announcing that at the end of the show. But if folks don't know, in our free Play Money Home Game Club, the premium members who perform at the top of the charts in our leaderboard every month are the ROI winners, and they get to choose a guest to come on the podcast and join the panel for us. So I want to introduce Christina Sukram, who was our ROI winner last summer. And you said, "I got to get me some of that Daniel Negreanu." Is that basically how it went, Christina?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan and I've been watching Daniel like for a very long time. So when the opportunity came up, I'm like, I got to get on this. So thank you, Jim, for the opportunity.
Well, you earned it. And it's great to have you here. I love it when our premium members get involved in this kind of stuff. Kim Kilroy, we were talking, and you also had some success in on the E-Felt over the weekend, but not quite what you were hoping for. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the week was weekend family time, which is lovely, up in Halliburton in the beautiful cottage country. But I played in the Irish Open Satellite on Sunday last night, and only one package is given away in PokerStars Ontario, and I was second.
So close.
And I'm kicking myself because I didn't know it was the last one. There's none. It doesn't look like there's any more.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what's happened to them. They've disappeared, but I took a high variance spot and went with it, and I didn't have to, especially after watching Marek Madness and watching John and or watching
Chris and KL.
Chris
and
KL
KL Cleaton.
Like,
that was incredible.
Yeah. So
they know how to small ball.
Consolation prize, but I'm still going.
Yeah.
And as everyone else should come too.
It's true. I'll see you there. I'm already looking forward to it.
You want a seat, it just costs a lot more.
Yeah, that's right. Well, all right. I'm glad we got a chance to all kind of catch up. I know we've got a bunch of exciting stuff going on this week, but I am super excited. Let's bring in the man himself, D-Negs, Kid Poker, Daniel Negreanu. We have a very Canadian-centric panel today, I think in honor of your being here, Daniel. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the RecPoker Podcast. Welcome, man.
Well, so listen, it's funny you mentioned the whole Canadian thing because I'm listening to you guys in the first couple minutes and I'm like, these people seem really nice. Like you guys are like just nice people. I can tell this is my job. I read people and you're all just nice. And I'm like, okay, I heard the little Canadian accent over here and there. I'm like, okay, it all comes together. It makes sense now. Sorry.
Nice. We are. Yeah. Oh, sorry. If we were a little too nice, I apologize for that. That can catch some people off guard. That is the Canadian approach. But yeah, it is. We do self-select. It's a pretty friendly group over here. Daniel, we're going to start off the way we always do. I just want to, if anyone doesn't know who Daniel freaking Negreanu is, the guy's got 7 WSOP bracelets, 2 World Poker Tour titles. He's in the Poker Hall of Fame. He's been a poker celebrity since he was in his 20s. Daniel, you've been a pro player. You've done coaching. You've built a master class. You've got the vlog. You've done all sorts of amazing. You had all sorts of amazing contributions to the poker world. The interview always starts with this question. How would you define your own role in the poker world today?
So that's a tough question, right? And I knew you were going to ask it. And it's one that typically makes me a little uncomfortable in that because I hate the word. I hate the word ambassador. It sounds so self-righteous, like I am the ambassador to the, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to countries and talking to leaders and doing anything important. We're just, poker. So for me, I've always thought of my role as somebody who, is a player who, obviously plays the game, is entertaining when he does so, promotes it, the World Series of Poker, GG Poker, you name it. And just always, frankly, looking out for, listening to the ear of what players want and trying to make sure that the World Series of Poker specifically has a little bit of all of it for everybody. And I think they do a good job of, you catering to the low rollers. You got mixed game stuff. You got high stakes. I mean, it's 7 weeks series and, you'll find something in there that you want to play for sure.
Nice. We've actually got a couple questions coming up about that. Before we get into those, I want to start by opening the action with our speed round. So we're going to get some dramatic special effect music in here, and we are going to go for our lightning round here. Daniel, I just want short answers. The first thing that comes into your mind, and all that you can say pass at any time. We're going to see how many of these we can get in 2 minutes. So here we are opening the action with Daniel Negreanu. We'll start with an easy one, Daniel. What is your favorite poker hand?
10-7 offsuit.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Both.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Nits.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
Yes.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, yeah.
Maple Leafs or Golden Knights?
Pass.
Dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs.
What's one thing you're afraid of?
Dementia.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Lazy.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Of course, yes.
What's one thing you complain about?
Nits.
There's a yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
I'm a speed up guy.
Name one poker player you respect.
Phil Ivey.
More rake, better or worse?
Ha 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 ha. Next.
What's a great name for a dog?
Rocky.
Are you pro chop or no chop?
No chop over here.
Who's your poker nemesis?
Poker nemesis. Pass.
Name one musical artist that you enjoy.
Bob Marley.
Nice. Okay, great score. That was really good. All right, we're gonna let our proprietorial algorithm run in the background and derive a score for you while the interview proceeds. So we'll get back to that in a second. But
well, I did get them all
answers.
right? So it's like 100%.
I'm just double checking. I think you did get them all right. That's actually really impressive. All right, so we'll see what our tabulation looks like at the end of the show. I want to just remind our YouTube chatters, if you're here watching the show live, I'm so glad to have you here. If you've got questions for Daniel, please type them into the YouTube chat and we'll make sure that we ask them. And also start suggesting names. We're going to be playing Stake Study Stack with Daniel at the end of the interview, and I'd love to get some names from the crowd for that. And just a reminder, don't type food bank in just yet, but we are going to do our raffle at the end of the show to benefit a local food bank. So stick around. There's going to be a lot of fun at the end of the show as well. So Daniel, we prepared a few questions. We're going to get some questions from the YouTube chat. My first question is, you've got so much on the go. You're so plugged in. There's so many ways you could be spending your time. Why come on the RecPoker podcast?
So I think stuff like this, like the things you guys do, is really important. You know, we talk about poker and there's plenty of professionals and there's plenty of the diehards and there's a lot of content out for them. And you guys have a special niche, which I think is the most important group, right? New people getting into the game, not necessarily wanting to be professionals, but just, want to improve, right? Like, I'm not going to be a professional golfer, but you know what I enjoy? Improving at golf. I'm never going to be a chess master, but I enjoy getting better at chess. It's not going to make me quit my day job, which is poker, but I think it's fun to like give back in a sense to people that are in the exact space that, poker really needs people like that.
That's a great answer, man. I really do appreciate that. This is your second time on the show. You came on a couple years ago, and you really did open up about not only your life on the felt, but your life away from the tables. And you gave us some very authentic and genuine answers, and I appreciate that as well. I want to ask you about something that came up sort of all over social media over the last couple of weeks. There was this situation where both hands, it was three-handed in a tournament. Both players were, one player was all in, the hands were tabled. And the dealer sort of just very quickly mucked what he thought was the losing hand. And it turned out that the hand had been misread and the wrong person was sent to the rail. The question is, you're very steeped in the poker industry. Of course, you're very experienced as a player. As a player at the table, who should be speaking up? Who has a right to speak up? And who should not be speaking up if they notice something going wrong in that kind of a way?
Okay. It's for me, very defined, clear, short list of people who should speak up. Any of the players in the pot, any of the players at the table, the dealer, or if there is a tournament director or a tournament official that notices this, them too. Nobody else, not bystanders, not spectators, not live reporters, anything like that. And the reason for that is it's a slippery slope, right? Live reporters may have more of a rapport with certain players, and now you're sort of rigging the deck a little bit in terms of, well, I'll speak up if it helps him, but I won't speak up if it doesn't, right? So generally speaking, I think of live tournament reporters, which are very, very important because people want to hear and know what's going on. They really have to take the approach of being the fly on the wall. They're there, but they're not really there. So that's kind of how I see it.
That's a good answer. And do you think that do you think everyone else is going to see it that clearly? Is it a question of people just not really understanding what the roles of these other parties are, like the media and spectators?
Yeah, I think you'll have people with even more extreme views in both ways. Like some people may just say, well, screw him. He didn't know he won. It's on him, right? And there's some sense of like, okay, personal responsibility. It's kind of on you to, know when you won the hand, right? On the other side of the coin, you might have people that are like, wait, no, it's against the spirit of the game. The guy won the pot, tabled his hand, like everyone should have a say, right? So for me, a happy medium is, like I said, everyone involved in the game, whether it's the dealer or the players in the pot or not, and a tournament director, but everyone else. I mean, what do you do about spectators? Sometimes we have these tables and there's people on the rail. What if it's my rail and there's 20 people there that are rooting for me, and they see something, they'll speak up, and if they don't, I don't know that you want to introduce that. So I think a very clear line is the one that I made.
Yep, I like that. And I think it matters that we have rules that are easy to understand and easy to follow and easy to enforce. Like simplicity when it comes to rules, I think is really important. Christina Sukram, you had a couple questions for Daniel. Why don't you jump right in?
Yeah, okay. So the first question I have is about the WSOP schedule that, as you know, that was released last month. So when the schedule was released, there was some talk about the events that are priced under $1,000, the buy-ins under $1,000. Some people feel that there should be more of these to attract rec players like myself. Some people think that there should be less of these to attract maybe more of the high rollers. So I was curious to know your thoughts about this with respect to growing the game. And the second part of my question is, if you could design the WSOP schedule, what would your ideal schedule look like?
Okay, well, I'm just gonna say hi, Rocky. We're gonna answer this question together, okay, buddy? All right, it's a good one. It's right up my alley. WSOP. Let me sit you over here. Okay, so first of all, here's the thing. My position on the WSOP schedule has evolved over time with the evolution of the way poker was. When I started in the game, okay, in the late 90s, there were no buy-ins under $2,000. So I went there in 1996 and I was part of the World Series, but I didn't get to play. I was playing satellites, $200, $500. I was still part of it down at Binion's Horseshoe. But again, the barrier was big. And I sort of appreciated that old school, way of doing things, right? Where it's, but then of course, once you've opened the floodgates, right? And poker's changed. It's become more corporate. We have a lot more recreational amateur players playing. So it's just evolved, and I've evolved with it, right? And said to myself, okay, what do the people want? I always thought that anything under 1,000 is really pushing it, because I'm like, what are we doing here? Like what? Because then, what's a hop, step, and a jump to $20 buy-in with rebuys? Like we can't be giving away bracelets for $20 buy-ins, right? But having said that, I think the schedule, to sort of answer the second part of your question, I think if you really look at it, and you said if I have the ability to craft the schedule, well, I do. So, I mean, I have a big influence on the schedule. I really do, and I sort of mentioned this in the beginning. Is that I think we give everybody a little bit of something. Like every day or every few days, you've got a $300 Gladiator, $400 Colossus. You've got small PLO, $600 deep stacks. You got 25K mix. You got 100K buy-in. You got 250,000, right? So if you're a high roller, you look at the schedule and you say, okay, which part is? Let's say if I'm only going for 2 weeks, you might pick the meatiest part for you. If you're a stud player, you go, okay, there's a 1,510K. I'm going to attack it here. And, I'm going to map out my schedule that way. But I think at this point, if you look at every single weekend, every weekend, there's what I hate to call them this, but kind of like carnival events, Millie Maker, Marathon, Colossus, Pendulum, like all these cool names, Gladiator, right? These sort of gimmicky things, Lucky Sevens, all that. So I think already, if you are a recreational player that's like you can find plenty of events. In addition to that, there's deep stack tournaments that are not for bracelets. And then all around town, there's a whole bunch of tournaments. So I would be shocked if anyone said during the summer they don't have anything to play.
Perfect. Okay. I appreciate your something for everyone approach. Okay. My next question is about hand histories. So rec players such as myself, one of the things we're taught when we're learning to play the game is the importance of recording our hand histories and discussing it in a community such as rec poker. So first part of my question is, we observe on your blog that during WSOP, you often share and record your hand histories. So what tools and techniques do you use to record your hand histories? And then the second part of my question is, over the course of your career, you've probably played a million hands. Is there one hand in particular that you've analyzed that you wish you could have played differently, and why?
Okay. All right. Another big one. Now I'm forgetting the first part of it. It was
how do you record hands?
Oh, how do I record? Yeah. So that evolved as well. Obviously, when I was a teenager, I used to sort of download in my brain and think about them on the way home with pen and paper, because that's what we had. I had a little notebook, like one of these little logs, and I had a fanny pack, because back then it was before Mike Matusow had them, so they were cool. After Mike Matusow starts wearing them, can't wear them anymore, obviously. So it was pen and paper, and now it's evolved to quite simply my phone. I have a notepad everyone has a notepad in their phone, and I just use the notepad, and I just keep, I know how to use notation, like 5C is 5 of clubs, and I just put the relevant information in there, that I find interesting. As far as like hands that I wish I could have played differently, there are so many, okay? But there is there's one big one, because it's such a monumental moment. And it was the World Series of Poker main event in the year 2000, I believe, was the year Carlos Mortensen won. And I'll tell you the hand. I was chip leader with 12 left. The blinds were 5 and 10,000. Carlos Mortensen. The raise sizes were very different back then, as you'll see. He made it 35,000 under the gun. That's 3.5 big blinds. You don't see that these days. Okay. The next player, 2 over, was a German named Henry Nowitzki or something. Henry Nowa something. And he makes it 150,000. Okay. So again, crazy big sizes. I'm in the big blind with ace king, and I decide to make it 350,000. That way, if Carlos, because he had a lot of chips, if he plays, then I can get away and fold. Whereas I'll go all in against Henry because he's a little bit shorter. Now, if I could go back in history, I ended up getting it all in with Henry, who had a pair of 6s, which is not a hand he's supposed to have. Carlos folded pocket 9s, so it was a flip. And a flop came Jack 10, blank, blank. I missed. And I lost the pot, lost my chip lead. If I could go back in time, right? I'm not saying today I would fold that hand because poker is much more difficult. But back then it was so much easier. And I'm so much more skilled that I didn't even need to get involved in the situation at all. Like I could actually just fold flop because, I was doing good with my small ball strategy back then.
There you go. That's what Kim was wishing she had brought into the Irish Open satellite there. But that's cool. Thank you for that. Reminder to our YouTube chatters, get your questions in. And also, if you want to support the show with a donation through the YouTube chat, we share a portion of all our donations with a local food bank. So whether that's a super chat, super sticky, super comment, we appreciate that. And if you go to rec.poker/support, you can find some other ways to help us out in our organization, either for free, just by helping review things, subscribe and like stuff, sign up for stuff, or through Patreon or PayPal. We really appreciate your support. And I just want to shout out, we got 2 new premium members this week, which I'm excited to be welcoming, Greg Whitaker and the one and only Kathy Liebert. I'm so excited to have them here as premium members at RecPoker. So thank you, Kathy and Greg, for your $22 a month. Very excited to have you here on board. So yeah, get those YouTube questions in. We've got one here from Jeff Drury. Daniel, will there be a Road to Vegas package on Club GG this year?
That's a good question. And I don't know that I can divulge, any sort of plans that haven't been released yet. I'm quite certain, you will certainly see one on GG Poker. Whether Club GG has one as well remains to be seen. Like,
keep the mystery alive. I love it. Kim Kilroy, you had a question, I think.
Yeah. As a fellow vegan and dog lover, I've been following your new podcast, and I listen to it every week. I've been following your journey to parenthood with Amanda, and I would like to know if this comes to fruition for you, how will parenthood change your life? Like, how do you see it changing your life? And I'm sure it'll be nothing like that, but how do you see it changing your life?
Yeah, well, everyone who's a parent, they always tell you, you think but you don't know till you're there, and you don't know how you feel. And I get that. Like, I assume there's a lot of truth to that. Having said that, the way my life is structured now, it's pretty regimented and pretty, I understand with a baby, things go left, they go right, vomit happens and whatever else. But, I already scaled back my travel significantly. Like, I don't travel anymore. I go 2 weeks, I go to Vancouver to stream the GG series, and then I go to Bahamas for 2 weeks. Other than that, you don't see me travel. I'm here for the World Series. So I would imagine during the World Series of Poker, I would just be a lot more intentional with the tournaments that I do play, right? And not just be there 24/7. And also making time for, like, basically what it would mean is, like, my priorities have to shift in a sense from, wow, this is a really good tournament to play, but, this is his birthday. So, birthday might take precedence in some spots, of course. And then of course, my wife, Amanda, I think for her, I think she's going to experience a lot more change than I will in terms of, it's big for her. Like, she's anxious about it. She can't wait. Hopefully everything works out. We're getting some good news recently. But yeah, so I think, the good news is we communicate really, really well, so, whatever's going on, we'll be able to handle it. I'm the calm rock. She's anxious. She gets, like, I've had clear intention that the baby's going to go perfectly, and I've never veered from it. And she's more anxious and can't sleep and all that sort of thing. So, so we'll make it work. Her strengths, my strengths, put them together. And I feel like, I'm looking forward to it. Like, she says this, she's like, she's always looking forward to the rocking the baby part, the feeding the baby. And I'm like, can we just fast forward till it's 3 and I can get it on the golf course? We can, like, teach it how to swing. And it's like, she was wondering about that. And her therapist even said, he's like, that's actually just a man-woman thing. Okay. It's pretty normal. for women to be thinking about that first couple months. And like, not that I don't care. Of course I care. But I'm already thinking of, down the road, like schools and sports and, the fun stuff.
Or you're saying she's already can't sleep, so she's practicing right now for it.
Yeah, well, that's a
She's not gonna
concern. That's
get-
actually one of my biggest concerns for her. Is she needs sleep. She doesn't get enough
Yeah.
sleep now. And I'm like, you introduce a child, you're going to get less than you get now. So that's problematic. Hopefully, we have help. We have resources. We're going to have people. So, but again,
Right.
ultimately it's her and I that want to be raising the child, not having nannies do it or anything like that.
Right. Oh, best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. Joe Coolest, you had a couple questions, I think.
So my gift to you, Daniel, is so I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and the book that I'm going to tell you is gold. It's called Healthy Sleep, Happy Child. If you follow that book, your wife will get all the sleep that she needs. You just have to follow it, and
I wish that were true, but I don't know if you know, like she's bipolar. Okay. So there's a very different, like, it's not like with her, sleep is very, very difficult with or without. And it's a struggle, but she powers through it. But yeah, I'll take a look at the book for sure.
At the very least, she'll be able to get all the sleep that the baby will allow her to
Yeah,
have,
exactly.
at the very least. So, my training kind of comes into it. The last time you were on the show, I actually wasn't on the wrecking crew at the time, and you were kind enough to answer a question I had about your Tourette's syndrome in terms of how it impacts your play. So I'd kind of like to follow up with that, if that's still okay to speak about things, because you had kind of said it publicly, so I don't think I'm letting anything out of the bag. But two of the conditions that are actually very comorbid with Tourette's are attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as well as obsessive compulsive disorder. And, poker is a career path that many people with those particular issues oftentimes are drawn to. And I don't think you've ever said that you have those disorders, but do you ever experience some of the things that are present? And how do you think that it would impact in terms of your success if you did have them?
There were two. You said OCD, and what was the other one?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD.
It's so funny you mentioned these two, because first of all, my wife, she studies psychology, and if you ask her, I'm heavily OCD and heavily whatever that is, right? As far as the Tourette's goes, it's really interesting how it works for me. I have a very mild case. When you brought up the subject, I haven't thought about it for quite a long time. The first thing that happened was I started to blink. It's amazing. Like when I see somebody else with Tourette's and they're doing any sort of movements, or it just comes out in me. So I try to avoid it as much as possible in that regard. As far as the OCD stuff and the hyper awareness, I think those are both really helpful, right? Like in order to become great at something, whatever it is, you have to devote a big chunk of your life to it, usually at a relatively early age. And I did that in my 20s because I just loved it. And all I wanted to do was play poker. Nothing else mattered. Just play. So I was able to build that robust foundation. And the other, one you mentioned, I'm not as familiar with, but I imagine it's relates to, the ability to focus in some ways. And, it's funny because I think this is true maybe for a lot of men, but like if you go shopping at the mall with your wife, 30 minutes in, you need to sleep. Like you need a nap. It's too hard. Like you just, oh my God, I feel it's one of the hardest things in the world to do. Whereas you can play poker for 14 hours and feel like, oh man, time just flew by, because I'm feeling engaged mentally. When I'm not, that's when, fatigue hits.
Okay. Yeah. So just for the audience to know that when you look in terms of where those neurobiologically occur, they're in the same location. And so those three disorders tend to be inflicted by the basal ganglia as well as the amygdala, which are right next to each other. It's very boring for most people except for me. But I think that it's interesting because depending upon how much that gets out of control, like for OCD, it forces you to do things over and over. And there's a perfectionistic aspect to the disorder. So long as it doesn't kind of overwhelm you, there are some aspects that people can be very successful, but sometimes it can lead to problems if it kind of gets out of control.
Yeah, I'll say for me, across the board on all things, it's very mild. Like for me, obsessive compulsive is like she takes the scissors and the scissors go in a spot, and then I need to find the damn scissors, and the scissors are nowhere to be found. Okay, that does annoy me. Because I like to put the scissors in the place where the scissors go. That way, guess what? If I need the scissors, I know where the scissors are, right? So to me, a lot of the OCD stuff she accuses me of are like really common sense stuff. But, she lives like, she's more of a fly by the seat of your pants. Like, I just, whatever, man, go with the flow. And I'm a little more regimented with my schedule and, having things where they go.
So just along those same lines, and you don't have to reveal what it was because I'm sure that you wouldn't, but one of the ways that you can get at someone with OCD is just to find their little niche and press it. Have any players ever found what that is for you and put the scissors in the wrong drawer at the poker table to kind of move you off your game?
Never. No, I can't imagine a single spot, that anyone's done. I think people say things to get under your skin. Like Helmuth always gets under my skin. But you know what Helmuth does? This one isn't. He's like, he'll say stuff like, me and Daniel think. I'm like, hold the phone. Okay. Bill, you think. I literally never said this. I don't agree with this. Don't speak on my behalf. Well, me and Daniel think. Hold on. Just no. Like I did not, don't do that. I hate that. That drives me nuts.
So my follow-up question, it actually is very similar, and it has to do with kind of influence. So your new podcast, Mania, I think is the name of it, that you're doing with your wife, focuses somewhat on poker, right? But then there's a lot of other things that you get into. And what I'm always interested in asking, I've asked a number of the individuals who've come on, is people in the poker world, for their audiences, have a lot of power, right? You have a lot of power there's halo effects that come along with knowing one thing very well. And I would come to you to listen to your poker advice any day of the week. What I probably wouldn't find myself doing is coming to listen to you talk about psychological concepts, simply because, well, that's my training, right? This is the area where I'm an expert on. Yet you spend a lot of your time talking about a lot of different things. And my question is not, do you have the right to? Because you obviously do have the right to, and obviously people are listening to you. But do you ever take time to kind of consider, well, am I using that power appropriately for the dissemination of this information? Since you're a poker player, you're not kind of an expert in some of these other areas. Does that make sense?
I would heavily disagree with the characterization that it's a poker podcast, because we almost never, ever talk about poker. It was never designed to be. We really don't talk about poker. I did just this last episode that airs because I won a tournament and, we just talk about what we're doing. So what our podcast is, right? Podcast is called Mania. And really it revolves around my wife, who happens to be, educated. She has a degree. And she's also bipolar herself, and goes to therapy. So one of the main cruxes of what we talk about is mental health as it relates to her and, me with poker and how I deal with things. It isn't a place where we are speaking down condescendingly to people. We are not teaching people anything. What we do is we share how we communicate, right? How do I live as a husband of a wife who's bipolar? What do our daily struggles look like? What does she go through, the ups, the downs, and all these types of things, right? And our podcast has many verticals. We usually it's kind of like our own little fun therapy session that you guys get to listen to. And we cover all kinds of topics. She'll talk about the Bardoni case. We had an OJ Simpson thing on. We sort of run the gamut. So really, when it comes to like mental health, that is kind of how we started our first episode, talking about how we met, how she learned of her diagnosis, how she copes, and these types of things. So it obviously comes up, but it's really mostly a podcast, about a relationship between the two of us in our lives. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you this, in that area, like a podcast about our lives, we're both absolutely experts because they're our lives.
No, and you certainly, a lot of it is there. And I want to, I did watch a number of the different episodes. And so to prove that, you pushed the 4 assumptions or the 4 questions as certainly a good way.
4 agreements.
4 agreements. Thank you very much. And it's not so much a matter that you can't talk about how it would affect you, but in terms of making recommendations, because you have that power of being.
I would recommend that book to literally every human on earth.
Right.
It's a great book. Have you read it? It's fantastic. Love it.
I have not, but I certainly have a lot of expertise in the area, but it carries more weight than something I might say at times, which has always been an interest to me. That's kind of like, well, why should we listen to a poker player talk about these topics?
Well, here's the thing.
Exactly. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just interested.
Of course. Like you don't have to, right? Like if you listen to say, whatever, some of the main podcasts, whether it's Joe Rogan or whatever, he shares what he eats and what he does. And he says this works for him and all of these. He's like, you should try this. You should try. But like, again, ultimately it's up to the consumer or the listener to decide how much credibility or how much they want to, give into that. So when I share, that I found for me 4 agreements to be very impactful, friends did as well. It was recommended to me by an expert in the field as well. So I feel very comfortable. And I agree with you completely, Joseph, that you have to be very careful of sort of pushing these ideas that are like, this is the truth, right? I share typically what works for me. And I do this for poker as well. This is what's worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for you, but I share my successes, how I've gone through things. And sometimes people take a nugget or two. Every one of these podcasters I listen to talk about the value of ice baths in the morning. And I know they're right, damn it. But I can't bring myself to do it because I hate being cold, But yeah, I'm like, I'm not concerned about, spreading disinformation or anything like that, because anything that I said that I like the Four Agreements, specifically that book, that isn't just me recommending that, that's something that I've thought deeply about, and it isn't a willy-nilly kind of recommendation.
No, and I wasn't suggesting that anything that you think about, because you're, in listening to the podcast, you do think deeply about different things, but it's always just a matter of where that expertise goes. The final thing that I'll say is that actually, if you look at a lot of literature in terms of icing of injuries, even though physical therapists will often say that the literature and the research doesn't support it as well as they make it out to be, there's a lot of question about how that works. So you're okay not taking the ice bath because it is probably not going to work for you.
Yeah, this is the great thing about science. And here's something I would suggest. Kim mentioned she's a vegan as well as I am. And I believe that, like, whether it's ice baths, whether it's your diet, I don't believe there is such a thing as the optimal diet for every human being, because the optimal diet for me is probably not the same as Shaquille O'Neal, or like a 12-year-old girl. Like, we all have our different tendencies and our things that work for us. And, I'm not a militant vegan. I'm like, whatever you do, I'm going to do me, because my blood works good. It works for me. And similarly with the ice baths or whatever, if people feel like they do the ice baths in the morning and it gives them this rush of energy and clarity and all that stuff, even if it's placebo, by all means, go for it. But you're right. Science, like on all these things, is often like, eggs are good for you. Eggs are bad. Coffee's great. Coffee sucks. Like, every 3 years we find out it's a complete reversal of what we thought before.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate your candor in terms of those questions. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Well, and speaking of questions, YouTube chatters, get your questions in. We're going to be wrapping up in not too much longer with Daniel, so you've still got a chance to get a couple in. And if you'd like to enter our raffle, I just suggest that you type the word food bank into the YouTube chat there, and that'll get you a raffle ticket for our draw at the end of the show. We sort of draw some attention to the fight against food insecurity on the show every week, because it's just a tough time in the world right now. And it's never been more necessary to help hungry people put food on the table. So if you're listening right now, just pull out your smartphone, please, and just Google food banks near me. I'm sure you'll find an organization that could benefit from a few dollars out of your pocket, a few hours of volunteer time in your week, or some non-perishable food items from your pantry. So I hope that you do go support a local food bank. It's a great way to make the world a better place. And just for now, if you just type the words food bank into the YouTube chat, we'll count you in for a raffle ticket for our draw at the end of the show. Rob Washam, you're our RecPoker Santa Claus. What's the prize going to be this week?
Well, we're going to be giving away a free month of RecPoker Premium. And if you already have RecPoker Premium account, you can get a free month of one of our learning partners, including Tournament Poker Edge, the Poker Forge, Red Chip Poker, PokerCoaching.com, Jock Coaching, and Learn Pro Poker. And you can click on Resources, Learning Partners on our website to get more information.
All right. Yeah, jump in, guys. So we got a question here from Midwest 1811. Is this summer another focused on quality over quantity?
As of right now, the entire year and everything I've done so far, it's been much more relaxed and definitely quality over quantity. Like this year, I played all the mixed game series and I loved it because I really enjoy all the games. I showed up for every tournament. I played the Poker Go Cup, which was all no limit hold'em. And I didn't even go to the last few because I was like, meh, I just didn't feel like playing. No limit for me, no limit hold'em is really boring in comparison to mixed games. Whatever game it is, playing the same game over and over and over for 30 years, like I think everyone who gets into mixed games or gives it a dabble ends up falling in love. So my plan is probably going to be similar to last year's, which is play all the big events, typically focusing on mixed game and pot limit Omaha, and play no limit hold'em when I have to.
That's great. And congrats, by the way. I know you took home the crown just last week, I think, in a mixed event at the Poker Go tour there. So congratulations to you, man. Still showing up on the highest stages. We got a question from Wrecking Crew member Scott Lum. With many recreational players heading to Las Vegas this summer, what tips would you recommend to help them adjust their game from playing at home in their home games or in local card rooms to maybe competing for a bracelet for the first time?
Well, the first thing I'd say is it's a little too late when you're already sitting at the table to start like learning. You kind of have to go with the game you've got. And I'd say the number one most important thing is, having some confidence in the things that you do well, while also picking up ideas and things that you learn from other professionals and stuff like that. If you go in there and think, oh man, I got to play different than I play. Well, you have no experience playing this new weird way like everybody else. So you got to be you, authentic to your game, play the way that works for you. And then of course, maybe, after the series is over, you look back and you go, okay, what worked? What is the stuff that I did that really, really worked? And I feel like it worked. And then maybe what are the things that I don't think worked quite so well? Then that's the real focus, is the things that didn't work. Look at that and go, okay, how can I improve upon those things? You know what? I seem to have no chips around the bubble every time, and I'm getting hammered by these big chip leaders. What can I do to put myself in situations that, improve my stack? Like, whatever it is for you specifically, being honest with yourself is the first prerequisite to improving. Because if you just think you're great at poker and you're just unlucky, okay, well, sorry about your luck. I don't know. You're the greatest. There's no way you can possibly learn anything, The real pros, the real greats are the ones that constantly understand that no matter how good you are, number one, you can always get better. And number two, every one of your competitors is constantly working to get better. So if you don't get better, let's say you are the best and you don't get any better for the next 3 years, you'll no longer be the best.
Mm-hmm. We've got another question about poker in the States. This is from Eric Ebsen. It says, given the U.S. tax situation, do you ever see the Triton series coming to the United States? And would you ever travel for a Triton series yourself?
Well, I played the Triton when it was in Bahamas because I was already there for the World Series of Poker. As I said before, I've sort of really scaled back on my travel. I do enjoy watching them, when they're on here and there. As far as the United States, it would be a prerequisite that the tax situation would have to change for specifically for Canadian players. They couldn't play. The other issue was really related to sort of an issue that a lot of the Chinese players who created the event had when they were in Las Vegas, because they are legal bookmakers in China and they book all kinds of sports and, they operate legally. Well, they were in Las Vegas. There was a bit of a heist, or there was a little bit of a shakedown, if you will, and they were charged with a crime that they didn't commit, et cetera, et cetera. So they haven't been back since. I don't know that they trust the situation for themselves. So that would be, both those things would have to be fixed.
Good answer. So going back to growing up a little bit, Daniel, you and I both grew up in Toronto. We both went to school in North York in the 1980s and 90s. Were you a wrestling fan back then? Do you remember Hulk Hogan? Was he one of your fan? Were you a fan?
He was my favorite.
Yep, me too. I wasn't even that into wrestling. My brother was a big wrestling guy, though.
I was a Hulk Hogan, Ricky Steamboat fan, and of course,
nice
little Randy Macho Man Savage and Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Nice. Well, I think one of the things that poker and wrestling interestingly have in common is, when we're in poker hands, we talk about heroes and villains, and wrestling is very much a game of heroes and villains. Hulk Hogan, and you're seeing it with John Cena right now as well. He had this heel turn. He went from being the hero to sort of being a villain in his own career. When I mentioned that we were having you on the show this week, I had a very polarized response from a lot of people. And it got me thinking about kid poker and this sort of like wholesome Canadian kid who loved poker that like everybody loved. And, over the years, now you're in your 40s, you've built this whole career. It feels like you're kind of embracing a heel turn of your own, and you're not quite that wholesome kid poker anymore. Do you feel like that's true?
No, not quite. And I'll explain why. Because I've always had heel in me, right?
Okay.
So the thing is even when I started out in poker, I was actually quite cocky and quite confident and overconfident in my 20s. And, used to talk a lot of smack with people. But back then, we didn't have social media the way we did now, right? It was just what you saw on TV. We had poker forums, and I used to get into beefs in there, as in my 20s with a whole bunch of people, and then sort of, created a name for myself, if you will. But I think really what it comes down to is this old adage that says you either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain, because people are going to find things they disagree with about what you have to say or whatever it may be. And I found that as I've gotten older, I've been even more comfortable and care less. Like I think in your 20s, you definitely care about what people think. In your 30s, you don't think you care as much, but you still kind of care. I found in my 40s or whatever, this is me. Okay. Love it or hate it. And listen, if you dislike me because of a position I have on a specific topic, and that's defines me as a human being to you, that isn't my problem. That's yours. What I've learned in this polarized world of people, I have people, let's say, for example, on the political spectrum, all the way over here and all the way over there, a melting pot. What I've learned over the last probably 6 to 8 years is never again will I decide who are good and bad people based on their political views or those types of things. Like there are good people with, that have different life experiences than you, then prioritize different than you, different ways of thinking than you. So, but yeah, whenever you do that, if you take a position or you're vocal, which I am, and people disagree with your position, the norm today on social media is like, he's a devil. Let's get him without actually looking at the nuance or trying to have a deeper conversation. I also think too, social media is set up the worst way possible for that, because when we have a conversation, we could talk about very polarizing topics and probably have a civil conversation. It's very difficult on Twitter because people go to condescension and arrogance really quickly. And when they do that to me, I'm very good at being arrogant and condescending. So like I come back with like 10x of it, and that's not a good thing. It's a character flaw, much better than I used to be, frankly. But yeah, I've never been shy to, speak about controversial topics, because one of my favorite sayings again is, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. And that's really not how I live my life.
Well, I appreciate that. Do you feel like the way that your character has evolved over the years, like, is that part of what you think your legacy will be? Is it important to you that you're someone that, like again, I sort of get at when Kid Poker was someone that maybe I'm being nostalgic about. It was almost like universally liked, and now you have, I'll just put it plainly, like some people say you're kind of an asshole, and like, does that bother you? And what do you say to them? And is it important to you?
So from your perspective, So from your perspective, right? Like you saw it a certain way because you probably watched the TV stuff and all that. But for me, since I was about 24 years old, I've got almost 25 years of experience of having haters. And they were much more aggressive back then, frankly, than they are now. Like I expect haters, right? Anytime you take, you speak strongly about things you believe in, you're going to have haters, right? And, and there's more people who play poker right now, so you're going to have more polarizing views, but I don't spend much time or energy worrying about, again, like I said, what other people think. Like my wife loves me, my dogs love me, my friends love me, the people that know me love me. And frankly, I'll tell you the truth. I've never met anyone that doesn't like me that I was like, man, that's too bad. I really would have wanted to be friends with that person. Not once. Ever.
That's a good answer.
If you don't get me and you don't like me, right? Then, we probably ain't going to vibe anyway. That's it.
No. Well, we've got, so this I often ask this question. This doesn't come on the heels of that one, but if you had to go back in your life and do one thing differently, what's one thing you'd do differently?
So there's a whole bunch of things that I'd look at that I would have, given the situation today, I would do differently. But I'll tell you what, I truly don't live with any regret, because I'll tell you why. Every decision I made in life led me to where I am exactly today. My dream wife, my dream life, dream home, all those things, right? So I look at all the mistakes that I made in my life led me here. So those were learning opportunities. When I make mistakes or I do things wrong, that builds character in a different way. That sets me up to become who I was. So my concern or my fear would be, if I changed anything I did in the past, where would I be? Had I won the World Series in the year 2000, where would I be now? Would that have been good for me, bad for me? If I had too much money, who knows what I would have done? I don't know. So I don't live with any regret, but there's no question. There's a laundry list of things that I look at, things that I've said or things that I've done that are like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, and I'll acknowledge those things. I'm more than happy to, reach out to people, apologize to anyone or whatever, if I felt like I said something that, was out of bounds or whatever. But I don't dwell for sure on anything.
We've got a great question from DFS Brat, Wrecking Crew member Scott Beckham. It says, what's the best series for a first-time rec player to play in from your perspective when it comes to structure-wise or series-wise or atmosphere, in your opinion?
So here's the thing, right? Sort of Joseph was talking about this a little bit. This is an area where I do not have any expertise. And I'll tell you why, because I don't play a lot of these smaller tournaments and these series, so I would just have to defer to, others that do, right? Like I play at the Poker Go studio. I play at Aria. I play the big big high stakes tournaments in the World Series of Poker, right? So for me to say this is the best experience, I couldn't speak to an experience that I don't have anymore. When I started, in the late 90s, my spot was the Orleans. Really, I would come to Vegas and I'd play the $20 tournaments and I'd learn, and it was great, good structures, lots of fun. I don't know if that's still the case again, because I'm pretty far removed from that life.
Kim Kilroy, there's a hockey question coming. I knew we were going to be getting into some hockey stuff here, Kim.
Yes. I grew up in Scarborough. I was 10 years old when the Leafs last won the Stanley Cup. I have Leafs fandom built into my DNA, and as a lot of people from Toronto do. And I just want to know how. I mean, you were a big Leafs fan when you first went down there. You were always, and you're a hockey fan, so I understand that. And I understand if you don't want to answer favorites, but I just want to know how you feel about the Leafs now that you have another big team to promote, and that actually does better.
Yeah.
Or if in your bones you're still a Leafs fan.
Yeah. So I have a lot of sports fans are going to be like, ooh, you don't do this, that's bandwagony or whatever. You never abandon your team and whatnot. There was a period where the Leafs made one trade and I was like, I've had it. And it was when they traded Tuukka Rask, who was the goalie for the Boston Bruins for many years. And he was really, really good. And we could have had him, we had him in our midst and we got rid of him for a goalie that was nowhere near on his level. So that one upset me. And I got annoyed with just their MO of kind of getting players in their last legs to sort of like make a last victory tour. And I didn't feel like they were rebuilding right. I didn't have a lot of faith in management. So I sort of was like soured on them a little bit. And, here in Vegas, obviously they had crazy amount of success right off the bat. But then they started to have, as Jim would put it, a heel turn in a big way, where I found, listen, business is business. You move players, trades come and go. The way that they were dealing with players really upset me. I didn't like there's a tact and there's a way to handle a Marc-Andre Fleury, who's beloved everywhere. So frankly, I think the Leafs right now are a much more feel-good story. They need a win a lot more than Vegas does. We've been around 8 years. We've already got a cup. So, if I had to choose who I would like to see win one, it would be the Toronto Maple Leafs still. Because when I was a kid, I would, bleed blue and white, like tears, right? As I got older, I became more of just a hockey fan, and I'm a fan of specific players because I'm a fantasy nut. But yeah, I'm a big hockey guy. Love the Leafs. And that's the issue, right? Like when management does things that upset you, do you just go with it forever, or do you say, you know what? No, I've had it with you. But I do like what the Leafs have been doing the last couple of years. I think they're doing a lot better than they were when I walked away.
All right, thanks for that. Go Leafs, go.
Yeah, we do have a very GTA centric panel this week, not by accident, I suppose. Speaking of which, Christina Sukram, you had another question for Daniel, and then we'll wrap these things up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of advice and lists out there for people on what they should do when they go to the World Series of Poker. What, in your opinion, what is something that you would recommend that people don't do, or what should you not do at the WSOP?
Well, I can speak from my personal experience. One of the rules that I made for myself, and this is for somebody who wasn't, I didn't have plans of being a rec. I wanted to be, a pro. I knew that if I was going to do the Vegas lifestyle, I had to stay out of the pit completely. No slot machines, no blackjack, not even if friends come to town. Like none of my money and resources could be spent on a losing proposition. I had to, invest wisely, right? So if you are coming to the World Series of Poker and you have a bankroll set aside to play the tournaments, which is what you're there for, don't have a drunken night where all your buy-ins have gone down, the tube at a blackjack table. There's so much to do in Las Vegas where you can spend your money on experiences, whether it's restaurants, shows, playing poker. And frankly, Vegas as a whole has depended less and less on gambling, and if you are going to take your shot, I would say, I don't know, unless, if you have endless amounts of money and don't care, then do what you got to do. Right. But most people don't live in that reality.
All right. Well, thank you, Christina. Great questions tonight. Daniel, got 2 more questions for you, then we're going to let you go. I really appreciate your time tonight. This is one I like to ask a lot of our experienced players. How can we make the poker experience more fun for newer players?
That question sort of crosses over another one, which, well, I won't get into now. Well, you know what?
Get into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
So people always are like, what can we do to get more women in the game? What can we do to get new people in? And there's no magic pill formula. Okay. I've heard ideas like, what if we had, flowers and champagne baskets? Like, I'm like, I think that's pretty condescending to women to think like, oh, I'll play poker now because there's like there's perfume. Like there's some silly ideas. I think just in general, atmosphere wise, I think like, people that are drawn to poker typically are people that like enjoy strategy, but they want to have fun with it. So I would say like, man, I wish I had an easy answer for that because it really comes down to the people, right? Like if you are a pro, I would say this, if you're a pro and you make money off the game and people come to play in your game, you're opening up a shop and they're your customers. So you better make sure your customers are having a good time. That's something that we always knew, in today's poker world, by the way, especially at the higher stakes, Vegas has gone private. There's not like at the high stakes, you don't have public games anymore. It's like you got to know the right people. And in order to get in the games, if you are a winner, you have to be likable, you have to be engaging, you have to have some drinks, you have to, sort of play the role. So I would say overall, for specifically to the professionals, is let's think less about nickel and diming every situation where you squeeze each penny out of it. And it's okay to have some fun sometimes. It's okay if you play a hand in the dark. If the worst player at the table says, let's throw $100 in and do a flip, just do it. Just do it. Make them happy, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. We are sort of there are clients at the table, right? Like we do want the less experienced players to have a good time and to enjoy themselves. And that's part of what we do at Rec Poker here is not only enjoying the game, but you kind of mentioned this early on as well, like helping newer players, less experienced players just get better faster so that they have a budget that they can enjoy for longer at the table. And it's kind of silly, I think, the way that we treat poorly the less experienced players at the table and berate them and make them feel like they don't belong. And I just think it's a very simple fix for us to just sort of
just that one more thing. Don't make people feel stupid for spending their money how they spend it. Like if you lose because the other person made a mistake, understand like that's good for you in the long run. Laugh it off, let them enjoy the moment, and don't, berate them to the point where they feel like, wow, this wasn't fun at all. I don't want to play if people are going to yell at me for how I'm enjoying my money.
Yep. All right. Well, last question. We took some, you mentioned a couple names, took some names from the YouTube chat. We're going to play Stake, Study, Stack. So Daniel, I'm going to give you 3 names. You have to choose one that you would stake in a poker tournament or cash game, one that you would like to study with to actually help you improve as a player, and one that you would like nothing more than to just stack them at the table and take all their chips. Are you ready?
Sure.
The 3 names, we're giving you a suite of Phils tonight, Daniel. Phil Helmuth, Phil Galfond, and Phil Ivey. Stake, study, and stack.
That's actually quite easy, really, the way you laid it out. So stack, obviously Phil Helmuth, because it's fun to watch. It's like why I play poker, to watch him go off and give you the berating, situation. Stake, I'm going to stake the greatest player of all time, who just finds a way to win, but doesn't necessarily know how to explain how he does it. And that's Phil Ivey. And then the most analytical mind of the 3, no question, somebody who really thinks about the game on a deep level that can eloquently explain it, is Phil Galfond. You couldn't have placed them any easier, really.
There we go. Well, we're taking it easy on your way out of the interview here. Daniel, this was such a pleasure. If our folks want to say thanks for coming on the show, what can they do to help you out? Can they subscribe to something? Can they sign up for something? Can they follow you on socials? What's the best way that our audience can say thanks for coming on the show and sharing about your life like this?
Well, I'm at Real Kid Poker on X or Twitter or whatever people call it these days. And then, of course, I've got my YouTube channel, which right now, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, the Mania podcast. Again, this one's not poker, but we have fun with it. It is, sort of a passion of ours. And, we obviously like to see it grow. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. And other than that, I'm most active in terms of social media on the X platform.
There you go. Well, keep it up. And thanks again. This was a great interview. I hope to cross paths in person. I'll be down for the main event this year. And maybe I can put a cold drink in your hand. If nothing else, I'd like to say thanks and hi. This was a real pleasure. Daniel Negreanu, thank you again.
You got it, man.
All right. Well, Daniel's going to leave us here. We're going to take a few more minutes to give away a fantastic prize. We're going to talk about some upcoming events, some home game winners. Always great when we have like some of the most famous folks in the world. It's amazing. They make their time to come join us on the RecPoker podcast. And I do appreciate Daniel being quite authentic and real with his answers there. We got at some personal stuff in his life, and I'm always impressed with, as you said, Joseph, the candor and honesty that he shared with our audience. So thank you, Daniel, for that. We are going to round things out here before we give away our fantastic prize. Rob Gardner, you have an update from the RecPoker scoreboard, which we sort of put together every month. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what happened in February?
Yes, we hit a new record as a community. Ironically, in the shortest month of any year, 28-day month, we hit $97,096.02. And that's just our premium members. That's not the 1,800 members that we have in our overall organization, just the premium ones, just about hit six figures. And I think I'll just go ahead and say it. We're aiming for $1 million in cashes in 2025. It's a little ambitious, but we're out to a great start, so why not?
I love it, man. And it warms my heart to think that RecPoker premium members alone cashed for almost $100,000 in the month of February. I mean, that is just crazy. When Steve Fredland started this podcast, mentioning back to Steve in 2016 or 2017, I wonder if you ever thought that was possible. Yeah. So, and I just think it's great that you're running that program, Rob. Thanks for all your contributions here. But that's not the only Rob, and that's not the only cool, exciting promotional stuff that we have going on here for our premium members. Rob Washam, you've got some updates too.
Yes, we have the February ROI results. So the number one ROI was actually 170% ROI in February. Bone Crusher 14.
Marcel.
Who else?
What a boss. That guy is a
every
fellow
month.
Canadian. We're taking over. We're taking over the poker world. I want everyone to know. You're on notice, Yankees. We're coming. Congratulations, Marcel. Number one ROI. So Marcel, send the email, jim@rec.poker. You get to choose a guest coming up, just like Christina here, to come on the show and ask a couple questions. But Rob, it's not just the top ROI. Who are some of the other fantastic finishers?
Well, some guy named Rabman50 came in second. I don't know how that could have possibly happened. But anyway, Benny the Jet 96.
Hey, Benny.
As the second place premium member. Then we had Jen G 88. Followed by Bloop 7. And then Now You Said It.
There you go. Nice. And so just so folks know, our home game club, it's free to play in, it's free to join, it's play money to participate, but the prizes are real. It's not just these awesome, sexy looking RecPoker pins. You can also win a free month at Learn Pro Poker. You can win the opportunity to come on the show and talk to our guests. It's just one of the perks of being a premium member here at RecPoker. Another perk is that every month we're giving away a coaching lesson with Matt Affleck, and we're also giving away a coaching lesson with Mark Zhang. So every month, if you're a premium member, every premium event that you participate in, we give you a raffle ticket. And at the end of the month, we draw the name and find out who is it that's going to win a monthly coaching session with Matt Affleck this month, and who's going to win a monthly coaching session with Mark Zhang. So if you're thinking about giving premium membership a try, I would encourage you. We have a ton of free resources, but the real good stuff is only $22 a month. And if you want to get your first month, I do recommend just make a donation to a local food bank and send us the receipt. And we'll happily send you your first free month of premium membership at RecPoker for free. Speaking of free, John Somsky, you run our home game club. And who are some of the recent winners who have also won some fantastic prizes?
Well, on Wednesday, we had our No Limit Hold'em Championship Series. That's one of the Player of the Year series where you accrue points over the year. We have 12 tournaments, and your top 10 scores count. And UW River Rat won his very first No Limit Hold'em series, and that also put him into the lead for the Player of the Year race. Then Apple of My Eye, Harold Berry got his first nightly victory. Stewie 13, Stuart Carriage got his first nightly victory for the year, and that is 59 victories lifetime. Quite impressive. Eric E. Anderson 85 got his second nightly victory for the year. Ship and Flip Wreck, Luke O'Driscoll got his second nightly victory for the year. And Michael Babker got his first nightly victory for the year.
Awesome.
Evil Roy CA, David Westerveld got his third international victory for the year, bringing it to a grand lifetime total of 81 victories. One Jack Flack, Brett, got his first international victory for the year. And then convincingly, Eric Jin won the LPP event, so he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Amazing. Well, fantastic. Thanks, John, for all you do. Congratulations to all our winners. Joe Koulis, you had something I think you wanted to add here. Oh, you're muted at the moment. You're going full Somsky in the Somsky tradition.
I wanted to be part of the group, and I haven't done that yet. So that was my shot. I did, not necessarily with regards to the tournament, but I did want to kind of shout out. I had the unusual opportunity of running through some shorts while I was on a break today at work, and all of a sudden my face popped up in some of the shorts that I've been doing, which was a weird experience in the first place. Me and Lorianne. But I think that I did want to shout out the production crew, the people that are putting together these items. They're looking really great. I actually went back and started looking at all the different things, and the quality is there. It really kind of has a high level of production value. So they really deserve some. If you haven't seen them, take a look because they're pretty cool. The ones that have me are terrible, of course. But the rest of them are actually pretty great. So so kudos, guys.
Now, did you use high production value and rec poker in the same sentence there? Because that's not usually something we do a lot of.
I'm assuming you weren't involved in the
I have
production
nothing
of
to
the videos.
that explains a lot.
I just kind of figured that was what
Yeah.
came in. So yeah.
Well, kudos to our own Rob Gardner, the invisible producer, who has been working on a few cool video projects. In fact, Rob, why don't you just tell our audience again a little something about Ramp Poker? You've been putting some amazing learning materials together for poker players as well. It's not just fun little shorts and entertaining clips.
Does Joe realize that the same guy that does the content on the shorts is the moron that played the intro song twice? I'm just curious if he...
We're all trying our best. We're all trying our best.
I'm just curious
here,
if
Rob.
he knew that those were the same person. He might reserve some of those comments about production.
Jim's errors are infectious, like the kind of
Yes.
like kind of flu or something like that. So.
Yeah. So last week we launched the Ramp Poker core training course. You can check it out check it out through the RecPoker website because we want to get RecPoker credit for this.
Love that.
If you head over to RecPoker and you go to the Learning Partners page, you'll see a couple different options. If you're a premium member, there'll be two options because there's one with a premium member discount. But essentially, this course is a course we designed really focused on casual players who don't have 20, 30 hours a week to study. The videos are all broke down into 5 to 15 minute, easily digestible chunks. And it's really geared towards giving you a really strong foundation, teaching a lot of foundational concepts, and then going through all the facets of pre-flop, flop, turn, and river, and giving you simple thought processes that are easy to interpret and understand. Sure, GTO is great. Solvers are cool. But they really complicate the game and can give you kind of some decision anxiety when you actually get to the table and you're factoring in hundreds of variables. So having a baseline that's, 2 or 3 decisions and 2 or 3 factors in that decision so you can make quick and easy decisions, not only is going to make you better at like multi-tabling online, but it's just going to make the game more fun because you're just going to have less spots where you're over anxious about the decision, or you make the decision, you spend the next 6 weeks regretting it or second guessing it. And if you're unsure, if you're even curious about this, go through the link on the RecPoker webpage. There's 10 free videos. You can go absolutely access 10 videos of this course for free. It'll take you through some of the concepts. It'll take you through some really cool post-flop stops, and it doesn't cost you a thing. So at the very least, check it out and see if you can help. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on any of my socials at Rob Gardner Live. I'm happy to talk or answer any questions you may have.
Yeah. Then we're going to be working with a lot of Rob's training material here at RecPoker and putting these kind of boot camp courses together for a lot of our members to get them to the level where they can really get the most out of the other training material that we do around that we offer here in our premium membership. So I hope folks go and check that out. And speaking of things I hope folks go and check out, you got to go to runaces.com. That's the website for our sponsor, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. They've got a bunch of fun stuff going on. But one thing coming up that I know everyone's going to be excited about is the MSPT coming to Running Aces in April. So they've got a whole slate of events set up for that, which is going to be a blast. And you can also circle, I think it's official, the first weekend in August, because it's going to be Rec Poker weekend at Running Aces again, not in the winter edition. So I'm really excited for this. We've made it out to Running Aces in January a few times. I can't wait to see what it's like when you can step outside without losing your nose. So first weekend in from Frostbite, guys, come on. It's so hard leading these guys to a punchline sometimes. It's going to be a great time getting out there. August 1st and 2nd, circle that. It's a civic holiday weekend if you're in Canada, so you got a chance to get out there. It's probably some other BS holiday in the States, whatever you guys do. But get down to Running Aces. Again, runaces.com. See what they're getting up to in April with MSPT. That's going to be a blast. All right, folks, you've been super patient. Let's give away a freaking prize. Rob Gardner, please pull up the spinning wheel of infamy.
I will.
No, it's fame and fortune.
While I'm pulling that up, I just want to note, I don't know if you guys realize this, but this is a major milestone for the RecPoker podcast.
Uh-oh.
This is the first RecPoker podcast since February of 2023 where Jim did not mention a sandwich. So congratulations to all of the people out there.
Wow.
In 2.5 years.
Amazing. I'm proud of all of us. I'm proud of all of us.
Question about the hot dog being a sandwich.
Oh, was that in there? Did I miss it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, we're going to edit that out of the podcast.
Truth and reconciliation. We
next week. All right, let's spin the wheel. I'm so depressed.
All right, let's see who our fantastic winner is going to be this week. Let me see. Oh, it's getting close. Queens of Poker. I'm calling it. Congratulations. And nice to see you here in the chat. Welcome back, Queens of Poker. So you have won a fantastic prize. You can send an email to info@rec.poker, where Rec Poker Santa, Rob Washam, will take care of you, dip into his big bag of gifts and come up with something perfect for you. So, and I hope if you're listening at home, I hope you come and join us on YouTube at 7:30 Eastern every Monday night. We've got a fantastic slate of guests coming up in no particular order. Katie Stone, TJ Jerkowitz, Matt Matros, Maria Ho. We've got Kenny Hallert's coming back on the show. Kevin Mathers is going to be back in May to talk about more details about the WSOP. I know I'm missing a couple, but we've got some great guests coming up over the next little while. So tune in live with us on Monday night and have some fun.
Alex Fitzgerald.
Alex Fitzgerald's right around the corner. That's right. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, just like it always is. And I hope you come and join us. I guess that's really all there is to it, folks. I want to thank Daniel Negreanu. What a treat. That was a pleasure. Of course, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Joseph Koulis, Christina Sukram, John Somsky, Rob Washam, Kim Kilroy, our invisible producer, Rob Gardner. All our YouTube chatters, everyone that supports us through our Wrecking Crew membership, premium membership, our listeners at home. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks, everyone, so much. We'll see you next week on the RecPoker Podcast.